And welcome to this week's edition of your GymNet Sports Nation Coaches Show, featuring your head coach, Jonathon McClure. First off, Coach, congratulations. What a huge victory that was Friday night in Sweetwater. Kind of talk to us about, especially that second half, pulling away, but 400 yards of rushing offense. I mean, we're going to look. That's got to be probably a school record, but we're going to verify that. But just talk about those guys up front and limiting their big plays in the second half and the dominance up front by that offensive and defensive line.
Yeah, just so proud of the way the kids played. It very much had the feel on the sideline of a playoff game and just electric atmosphere. And so we get out there and man, they're athletic. We know they are. They made some plays in the first half. Couldn't stop us. Couldn't slow us down. Still, the O line and they were very complimentary of them after the game and everything. But the O line did their thing and really opened up some running lanes for several running backs. Aiden Hillis, Trey Hicks, Gray Beasley, running from the QB position. And so, just kind of rolling, started off early. We had some plans to take some different shots, do things, but man, it just didn't need those. We kind of stuck with what was going offensively. And then defensively, man, it was a little frustrating. As a defensive guy, we get into halftime and we're frustrated. It don't like giving up 21 points in the first half by any means.
On three big explosive plays.
Huge plays. And that's kind of after we kind of all got in there to the locker room and calmed down, like if you look at it offensively, we're doing everything right. We got everything. They don't have any answers for us right now. Defensively, we had really limited them. They had not drove the field on us. They had hit us for a big play on the second drive, and the others were set up by a kick return. They had a fake punt that got them down there that, man, I guess.
Can you believe they went for it on that?
Kudos to them, man, and I will take the blame 100%. My special teams coordinator cannot. We had all these big plans as far as, if they were past the 35, we weren't going to put anybody back. And I'm like, they're on their own. I think it was like the 18-yard line or something like that. And I was like, man, put one back. We don't want to lose the field position. And then they throw the fade ball on the fake punt, which, man, that would have completely changed the first half to a point, I'd imagine, if they wouldn't have completed that. But a great play by the Sweetwater kids that were able to execute that. But, like I said, you take those two plays away and really you look at it and they got, they hit us for a couple of throws and things like that where we had kids that were really close to right position other than that first big one that we gave up. And so we just had to clean up some of the details. And like I said, once we talked to the kids at halftime and calmed them down a little bit and talked to them like, man, look at this. With all the new video things that we can show them at halftime and everything, we can kind of show them like, man, we're right there. If we drop to this, a little bit better to the middle, then that guy's got to throw that ball over us or whatever the case may be. Then, they kind of settled in a little bit more. And then coming out, Sweetwater still had some fight left in them. They come out and get a score on the first possession. And then, we were able to finally get a couple stops. And once we started getting a couple stops, like I said, we weren't really all that concerned if they were going to stop our offense at that point. It was rolling. And so be able to separate from them there at the end was a great feeling. And kids were just, like I said, flying around all over the place, playing super physical football like we like to. It was awesome. Kids did great.
You had said that you thought that we would be able to pressure the quarterback more so than the other teams, and we did get pressure on him. Even in the first half, were you surprised at his ability to? It seemed like the pressure came off the edges. He was able to step up in the pocket, and it seemed like every throw he made was right on the money.
No, kid did an outstanding job, and we had seen, kudos to their coaches. We had seen that progression with him throughout the year, where he wasn't afraid to step up in the pocket. And if you kind of looked at how we approach things defensively, we sent a lot more inside pressures from the inside linebackers than we did the edge because we knew we could get some pressure on the edges with our defensive end. And so we expect them to step up in. The problem became, at the nose guard position, of course, being down, your starter, having to get guys in there that aren't quite as fresh and things like that. But, they did let them kind of get away with holding the nose guard a little bit and things like that. It wasn't nothing that was just overly, crazy like we had seen in some of the other films with some of the other teams we played. But, that definitely affected our ability to kind of get after him. We did get a couple hits on him, and he did not like it. I think Mason Miller had a big hit in the first half on him on a bang rush, what we call a delayed blitz, and got a hold of him one time. And so, but man, he wasn't afraid to step up in the pocket. He did deliver on time several times and good, accurate footballs. It was an outstanding. We knew we were going to be able to just chase him all night. We knew he was going to have to run for his life, so to speak. If they continue to drop back and pass. And that was more, to me, that was the bigger story, was that the fact that they just decided we weren't going to run the football. They didn't have a lot of success early, and they just kind of shut it down. I think he was their leading rusher for the night, was a QB on a
Right.
couple of
Yeah.
scrambles. So
Yeah, had really no running game whatsoever. And like you said, we kicked the field goal starting the second half, retook the lead 24-21, and then the only time they had the lead is they came back and, like you said, scored with the help of another big pass play,
yep.
And scored to go up 28-24. At that point, what do you think was the one play or a couple of plays that changed the momentum? Because Sweetwater never scored after that point, and we went ahead and ran off with the game.
Yeah, so they did. They hit the big pass play on that first drive, and honestly, we had a kid there, and the kid again made a great play on an extremely hard throw and put it over the top on a running back seam. But coming out of that next drive, they were still feeling pretty good about it. We had gone down, we'd kicked the field goal, they scored, took the lead back. We go down and score and take the lead back once again, and then they start driving. They throw that ball across the middle. We're in a cover 2 look, so inside backer Trey Hicks did a great job getting deep into the middle zone. They had to put a little bit more air under the ball, which is one of the things we had kind of talked about at halftime. And you see Stone Chase come across from the defensive left and jar the ball loose with a hard, clean, the way you draw it up hit.
Perfectly timed.
Yes, awesome time. And I know some people were looking at it from was it a fumble or whatever else? If you look at it on the film, the guy, as soon as he starts to make the catch, he never was really able to secure possession of the ball. Matter of fact, some of the steal shots that came from the game that I think some of the news outlets were there were kind of awesome. You kind of see it happening pretty close where he's fixing to hit it. But no, did an outstanding job, and you kind of felt a little bit of a shift because that was the one guy they had. That the other receiver they had was doing a great job on some of the timing routes and things like that. But that was their guy that could take the top off of the defense.
Right.
And he wasn't out for the game. He just went out for just a little while. But you felt the mood shift a little bit. And then later in that same series, to add to that, they do hand the ball off to their big running back. They turn around and toss the ball to him on a little stretch play, going towards their sideline. And, big third down. I think it's like 3rd and 3 at that point. And Mason Miller comes across from the inside linebacker position. And, if you were down on the field, it was one of the hardest hits from both of those young men, not just our guy, but one of the hardest hits I've heard all year. The kid said that Mason's stickers flew off his helmet. But he kind of stalemated him right there. And like I said, he took part of that blow as well. But that was when I felt different, just overall of how their approach changed, because when we did that, nobody had really stopped that guy from going to get a couple of tough yards like that. So then they end up with a 4th and 1 from midfield. They'd already gone from it 4th and whatever it was from the 18,
Yeah.
and they decided to punt the ball away. And that had just not been their MO. Every other time this season in that situation, they had direct snapped it. They'd gotten a punt formation, direct snapped that to that same running back, and they went. And you could see the confidence from their standpoint of, I don't know if we can get this, and so we better punt this away and try to play defense and get a stop. And
Yeah,
whether that was right or wrong, I don't know, but
yeah,
that was just a completely different approach from their coaching staff than what we had
Right.
seen, and you felt the whole shift like they can't stop us.
yeah,
And so,
yeah. It was very surprising. You go for it on your own 18,
Yeah.
but you're 4th and 1 from midfield. And do you think that was the coaching staff saying we can't get her? Do you think they had really, why even try a fake punt there? Just line up and run your normal offense. But they chose to line up in a punt formation. Whether they were looking for something to fake or not, we'll never know. But that was really a curious call at that juncture in the ball game.
It was, and that, man, I look at it in 2 ways. They either, like I said, it shook their confidence and their ability to go get the hard yard right there. They just hadn't had any success on the ground game at that point. I probably would have dropped the QB back and let him scramble for the first. I think would have been their best possibility of converting that right there. But the mood, like I said, I think if that hits on our sideline, it might be different. But I think
Right.
it just happening right in front of their sideline. It put a little
Yeah.
doubt in their mind,
Yeah.
and that's just my guess as far as how they approach that play. And then if they don't convert right there and they give us a short field, the way that our offense had been running the football, they were going to have a hard time stopping us in 4-down territory. So from the coaching, strategic side of that thing, well, maybe we can punt it down there and pin them. get them down there. If we can get 3 stops, and maybe they'll punt it to us on a short field. Their punt block was a weapon for them, so they needed to get us into a punt formation. So, every other game I'd kind of talked about, they had some type of special team score, and they weren't able to get that done. So they could have been trying to create that scenario, because where we were at, if we would have got the stop, it was 4 downs, and they had showed it. 4 downs is what going to happen. They got us to 4th down a couple times, but if it's 4th and 1, we're going to trust our big boys to go get it for us, and that's what they did. So that would be my guess. And that's all it is. But that would be my guess, was maybe they can pin us down there. Maybe we can get them stopped for 3 downs. And then they'll punt it to us, and we get a short field again.
Which we never had to punt the entire game. So never had to drop back. And that's a testament to how well the offensive played too. Talk to us a little bit. If there was any question about Aiden Ellis being 100% healthy, I mean, I think he answered that question. He had Earl Campbell-like statistics. I mean, 43 carries on the night? That was just a gutsy performance.
Yeah, I mean, tough kid. The intention was never to go in that game and him get 43 carries, but it's just hard not to hand the ball to the guy.
Absolutely.
When you need a hard yard.
Yeah.
He's going to go get it. And then you mixed into it with having our change of pace back with us with Trey Hicks. I think he had the most carries he's probably had all year. Gray mixed in some with the running game with his him as well, and then sprinkle in a few passes here and there to keep him honest. So you saw two different trains of thought on there. They went completely to the air, and we went completely to the ground for the most part. The only difference being is we probably kept them a little bit more honest by throwing the ball every now and then than what they try to do with the run game, because they just didn't have that many attempts at it. But no, man, Herculean effort by Aiden Ellis. Just an outstanding job once again. Really put himself out there as far as a dish. Like, this guy's a guy to be reckoned with. He's a multiple touchdown guy a game. If you get him close, he's going to get you in the end zone. He's going to do it in multiple different ways, breaking tackles, lunging at the goal line, diving at the goal line, doing everything he can. He just has no quit in him. And then you pair that with the guys that block for him up front. Those guys love getting him and all of our running backs and QBs into the end zone. They enjoy that more than the running backs do, I think, sometimes. There was an interview way early in the season with Zayden Wishart where he talked about, they were trying to compare him a little bit with his older brother, obviously. It's an easy storyline if you're a news guy. But he said, don't compare me to my brother. He said, I'm different. He said, he wanted to get into the end zone. I want to get other people into the end zone. And that's how he approached it.
Yeah, well said.
That's all of them, man. They just love that idea of, we call it bully ball. Just, you can't stop us from getting there. So we're going to see, how often we can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look statistically at that game, I don't know the number of plays Jim Ned run versus the number of plays Sweetwater did, but we do know the time of possession. We held the ball for over 35 minutes in that game versus Sweetwater, and that's a 48-minute game. So we had it over 3 times as long. Basically, for 3/4 of the game, Jim Ned had the football. And that's how, really, if you talk about carries, that's how we had that many carries, is we ran way more plays. All of Sweetwater's, their 4 touchdowns came on big pass plays, maybe 2, 3 play drives. And we were just methodical with our run game. And I can't help but think that any high school team, it's going to be hard for them to hold up in the fourth quarter when they've been on the defensive side for 35 minutes of that ball game.
Yeah, I mean, and you saw that same storyline kind of play out through all the statistics. I think it was 31 first downs to 11, 3-1 there as well. No, you're exactly right. We love the best time for our defense not to give up points is when our offense is on the field. So
Right.
That's always a recipe for success for us, as long as we're finishing those drives, and we were. And man, I mean, you go into that game, and of course, you're playing a very quality opponent. A team that can, has a chance to beat a lot of people. I would go as far as to say that's the best 6-4 team in the state right now. They're super, super dangerous with a lot of things. And that went into our idea of how to call things and so we went for a couple 4th downs, things where we had punted some things away in the past. Like, no, we're going to go extend this. We're going to go ahead and take that chance. The one thing that I would say we were really consistent with was in the 3rd quarter, we got down there, and the one time they kind of slowed us down, we went ahead and decided to kick the field goal, which wasn't an easy decision because of as many blocked kicks and things that they had. But, we made some changes, put some bigger bodies up there, asked some guys to do that hadn't been for that reason, was able to get that through the uprights. And that was the other thing that I kind of, talked about last week, is like, we got to stay on schedule. we got to take points when they're there. We don't want to press in certain situations, and that was one where I didn't feel we needed to. But there was a couple other drives where, like I said, they did get us to 4th and 1. It's like we got to trust. We're at midfield, 4th and 1. We're going to go, either hand the ball off again or run a QB sneak, and we can go get a yard to kind of keep those chains moving and keep that ball away from that dangerous offense.
Absolutely. Well, before we move on to this week's matchup with Iowa Park in the playoffs, let me just ask you this one question. Is this Jim Ned football team still improving? Are you seeing that improvement, and how high is the ceiling for additional improvement during the playoffs?
I think we are. I think what you see is that, throughout the course of the year, we've had to beat different opponents in different ways. There's been games where Gray's had to throw the ball for 3 or 4 touchdowns and for several hundred yards, and then there's been games where we can line up and we can run the ball 60 times and have 400 yards or something in between. We're showing that we can do it in different ways. Now, by all means, yes, we want to line up and play physical football, but depending on how you decide to attack us, if you're going to load the box up completely and go straight man on us, then we have the guys on the edge who can still beat you. And so it just took us a little while to find that nice blend offensively. But now that we've done it and we've seen it, like we feel like we can be dangerous in a lot of different ways of the game. We've improved. We've stopped making mistakes in special teams. Defensively, we gave up some points the other night, but at the end of the day, when you look at the second half and once our kids settled in, I think they had total 37 yards in the second half. From an offensive standpoint, if I'm not mistaken. Held their big running back that had just been kind of tearing people up to 5 yards. I think he only had 3 carries, but that's a testament to, they're not going to run him, So I think when you look at it from that standpoint, we have continued to show improvement in the areas of the game where we didn't early, where we had some, some of our losses and we showed some cracks in the armor. I think we've got those shored up. As far as the ceiling, man, we'll just have to wait and see. We got to continue to show up. We got to continue to get a little bit better. I know that's coach talk, but that is what it is. At this time of year, it's a war of attrition. We got to stay healthy. We did. That game took a toll on us. We're not as healthy as we've necessarily been. We're just sore. We're beat up. It was a long physical football game. So if we can continue to stay healthy and have all of our guys available to us, then that's one thing that's always a plus when you get to this point in the year, because a lot of teams don't. A lot of teams have several different key injuries in different spots and things like that. And so when you look at improving, it's really maintaining a lot of what you got and then just getting a little bit more sharp with the other things that you're doing, because at the end of the day, if your playmakers aren't on the field, they don't have a chance to make plays.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about this week's matchup. An old district opponent. We've played them the last 2 years, so we're familiar with them and so forth. So talk to us a little bit about what to expect from the Iowa Park Hawks on Friday night.
So we're seeing a team who wants to play football the way that we do it. I will say up until the other night, I mean, you look back to last season, we had that last senior night game with Iowa Park at our stadium. That was an overtime game. They were extremely physical themselves. They're big kids most of the time, thick, and do a great job in the weight room from that standpoint about putting mass on their kids and things like that. Now, they graduated a lot of kids off that football team from last year, and so they've got some younger kids playing in some key positions right now. They're still pretty big up front, best we can tell off of film. But they want to run the football. They want to play a physical style football as well. And then the other thing that's a little bit of an unknown that it'll be interesting to see how the game plays out when we get there, but they've played 3 different quarterbacks this year out of necessity. So their starter at the early in the year got hurt in the middle of district. We don't really know where. It looks like he finished one game, and the next game he's out. He's on crutches on the sideline, and so we don't know if something happened in practice. We don't, they're pretty tight-lipped. Obviously, they don't want us to know either. But that's been several weeks ago. The last couple of weeks, there's no crutches. He's still in street clothes, but it'll be interesting to see if they got that guy back. He's a big, tall gunslinger kid. I think he's like 6'3", but good-looking kid for sure. And then to replace him when he was out, and their pivotal game in district when they went to Ponder to play those guys, or I guess Ponder came to them. But they started they had 2 different kids play quarterback in that game, and they had a junior move in for them. I think he moved in there a couple years ago, but he's kind of more of a wildcat, still threw the ball, but number 14. And then they had number 11, who was a freshman, actually go in and take the majority of the snaps at QB so that 14 could go continue in his main role as a wide receiver. And so when you look at it from that standpoint, it's like, you try to play the chess game of what have they seen from us to decide, are we going to run the football? Are we going to try to air it out a little bit more than what we're used to? when you hang your hat on running the football, it's hard not to just try to do that. And so, but our run defense has been pretty stout here lately. But yeah, you're going to see a big football team. You're going to see a football team that wants to play the game in a physical manner. We got to see if we can, match that or maybe turn that up a notch on them and see if they really want to play it the way we want to play it. And so that'll be the thing, is kind of seeing how the quarterback position plays out. They return another big, tall wide receiver that we saw last year. We were able to hold him at bay for the most part last year, but I can tell you, as the defense coordinator last year, I was worried about him for certain. So we'll just have to see. They've rotated several linemen. One of those teams, they've had a couple other injuries as well. That, kind of what we were going to the Sweetwater game with. We don't know exactly what 11 are going to line up and what group we're going to be playing. So we're just going to have to show up and kind of have a couple ideas game plan wise as far as what they're going to try to take away and where we can find some success.
Yeah, and of course, brand new season. You can throw records out the door. Brand new season. You lose and you go home, and that's it. And so there's that added pressure. What do we need to do to get off to a fast start? And that's something that you've constantly preached to the team, and we've talked about, is especially getting off to a fast start offensively. And of course, we did that last week in Sweetwater. But are we going to deal with a little bit more nerves and things like that, maybe at the start of this game being a playoff game, or do you think last week was a good tune-up because it felt like a playoff atmosphere?
It's hard to say, not to dodge the question, but obviously from my aspect, the stakes are higher. Obviously, last Friday was not a win and get in the playoff type of game. It was for seeding, but at the end of the day, we knew we were in the playoffs. It was most definitely an electric playoff type atmosphere, and so I think that plays to our advantage a little bit. And then you look at on the flip side of that, you look at the experience that the Iowa Park team that we're facing went through last Friday. So they did have a kind of a play-in type of game. So there was a chance for them to end up in a three-way tie, which is exactly what happened for them. And then they had to go to a point system to see if they were going to be the number 4 seed or not. So, Iowa Park, Ponder, and then Bowie was trying to get in that fourth place as well. I think the way it worked out was that Iowa Park could lose by 1 or 2 points or win, and they were in. And so you saw that kind of play out with them. They were down 1 and actually took a knee to end the game. And so they didn't want to take a chance of giving up something stupid, throwing an interception or something to try to go for the win. So they actually took a knee while they were losing by a point. So a little bit different scenario for that team. It'll be interesting to see how they handle that coming out, just because that's just a little bit different. You don't see that happen
Right.
quite often.
Yeah, that's unique.
It really is. As far as our kids starting fast, the formula is the same. We have a saying, throw the first punch. Like, we got to be willing to go out there and take a shot at somebody. We can't be afraid to, go out there and try to win from the first whistle. And what I mean by that is, early on in the year when we weren't doing that, I felt like we were trying to feel some opponents out. Like, okay, well, how good are they? Well, how fast are they? How physical are they going to be? No, let's just go throw what we got at the wall and see if it sticks. And then we'll adjust from there. And they've done a much better job with that. We just need to kind of continue that trend. So we'll see, the last couple of games where we've done that, the way the coin toss has worked out, we've played defense first. So that, that may play into some of that kind of stuff a little bit, but I'm not scared, whether it be defense or offense, whatever unit we put out there on the field, the way they performed last week, I feel good about our chances to start fast and just kind of build on that as the game goes.
How important is it for, especially your underclassmen and the guys coming up, maybe some guys off the JV squad and so forth? There's added benefit to playoff runs and getting to play an extra 3 or 4 weeks or 5 weeks in the playoffs. That's like a whole nother district schedule almost. How important is that for programs that do it year in and year out for the maturity of their teams and their players?
Man, it's invaluable. You can't really put a price on that, so to speak. You look at the perennial powers in the state of Texas, the one that make deep playoff runs for 4 games, 5 games in the playoffs every sinking year. Then when you look at that over the totality of that, kid that gets to do that as a freshman and he goes on to do that, he's played 16 more games than the kids that didn't make the playoffs. And so, that
it's like a whole nother 2 years of football.
Yeah, exactly. So much more football, and that experience comes into play when they're juniors and seniors and it's their turn to make that run. And so that's the way we try to approach it. We want as much participation out of our sub varsities, our high school kids who can still, junior high, obviously you cannot continue playing. They have to move on to their next sport. But yeah, our high school kids, we want them out there. We want them to come and practice. And it's a hard spot. It's a hard spot for the JV guys to be in. And I fully understand that, because they don't necessarily have that game. And so, we go about that by trying to say, if you'll show up every day and you'll come help us out from a scout team mentality, then we'll take you with us. Now, the likelihood of those kids getting in the game, is very small to none. Playoff football, it's no joke in the state of Texas, obviously. Last year we were the higher seed coming into a playoff game, and we lost in the first round to a lower seed because you just never know what you're going to get into. You got teams you're not familiar with. You don't see them near as often. They weren't on your radar to start the year. You're worried about your district. And so anything can happen. But it's still a great experience for them. When you look at the practices Monday through Wednesday, after school and things like that, they get to go out there. And in our case, our kids get to go out there and line up and practice, whether it be a scout offense or a scout defense, against a district champion football team. All right. And, you look at up front, you look at it at every level, when we've got the weapons that we've got, they're either covering a guy, who has scored on varsity football teams. They're in the secondary and they're defending a quarterback, throwing around on them, or running backs that kind of the same thing. They're checking their fits and doing those type of things. Then up front, obviously, all the fanfare for our guys up front on both offense and defense, those guys get to either try to block those guys, or they try to, go and make a play against an offensive line that completely dominated another varsity football team. So, you can't put a price tag on it. The more kids that we can get there, the more kids that'll continue to stick with us and do those things, it is going to pay off in the long run for those guys.
Absolutely. Well, let's wrap it up by just kind of looking at the regular season as a whole. Um, co-champions at the varsity level, district champions at the JV level as well, and the freshmen had a good year as well, junior highs as well. So overall, with the entire program, how pleased are you wrapping up this regular season? You're first as the head coach of Jim Ned.
Man, it was a ride for sure. Lots and lots of kids, tons of participation, all the way up and down. But yeah, you named off most of the things that you'd want to highlight for sure. Co-champions, like you said, the JV being district champions. The freshmen actually did not have a freshman district game. There was not another team that we played that had a freshman team. We played one of the JV.
And that speaks to what we're doing right to
Yes.
have the numbers that we do versus the other programs. Not having a freshman team, that hurts a lot of programs. And so it's very important for us.
It does. For us to be able to keep the majority of that group, that freshman class together, and be able to have a team. And we were able to find them games. And that was the other thing. They didn't have to sit at home because nobody had a freshman team. We were able to go play. And we played some tough opponents. And not all of those came out positive for us, but they got to go play several JVs from, smaller schools and things like that. Kids that, teams that had kids that were sophomores and juniors. And we were playing with an all freshman squad, and not even all the freshmen, were on that team. We had to pull some kids up to kind of supplement the JV and do some of those things. So I definitely consider their year a success as well. I thought they played some really good ball at times this year, and grew as a group. And then you look down below, our eighth grader season unfortunately got cut short. Their last game was canceled due to lightning. I feel very confident what was fixing to happen in that game if they had lined it up. They don't like it. If you talk to those kids, it left a sour taste in their mouth because we did give up the opening kickoff touchdown. And so it looks like 6-0, but that was literally, it was a kickoff. That was about all the game that was played. Other than that, those guys just completely demolished everybody they played, other than a good wall squad in the first week. And that was a tight game, but that we came out on top. So that would have, if you just consider the Sweetwater game a wash, we didn't get to play it, they were undefeated. And so had an awesome year. Lots of kids got to play, scored lots of points, and didn't give up very many. And then your seventh graders were district champs as well. So they actually dropped that first game to Wall. Our kids just don't have our little class doesn't have a full-grown kid yet. So we're all 4 foot tall still. But, man, those guys love football, and they get after it. It's really amazing watching them work and the things that they do, and that is a massive class for us. So we had over 50 kids in the seventh grade playing football this year for us. And then you pair that also into our combo team. So we were able to actually get lots of kids playing time on the combo team. The weeks that we had games, we tried to fill them with different opponents. And the weeks that we didn't, man, we tried to play we call that the Thunder and Lightning team. We tried to play the Thunder versus the Lightning. We had several weeks where we had, Jim versus Ned out there on the stadium and played so that everybody could get as much playing time as possible. I think it's going to go really well for us in the development of these athletes and carrying on and trying to take this program where we continually kind of just take a little bit of small improvements each year.
Absolutely. Well, it was a great regular season, Coach, and let's go make some noise in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Coach. That'll do it for your GymNet Sports Nation Coaches Show, brought to you by Halligan Services. All right.